news that we've been following out of Washington. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy stripped of his power.
Joining us now on the phone is Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis of Staten Island. Congresswoman, a couple of things here. What's your reaction here to today's vote? We know you supported the Speaker. And what's the message to the everyday person with all this chaos that they're witnessing on their TVs?
Look, I think it's a very sad day. There was no good reason to remove Speaker McCarthy. The reason why Matt Gaetz chose to go after him, and Matt Gaetz is a right-wing extremist, and he went after him simply because they had personal differences, and because he worked in a bipartisan manner to prevent a debt default earlier this year, and to also make sure that we didn't have a shutdown. We tried to pass a conservative package last week that would have eliminated wasteful spending and also secured the border, but Matt Gaetz decided to choose the Democrats and vote with them to kill it. So we had no choice other than to work across the aisle to ensure that the government stayed open. And I don't think that McCarthy should be punished for that. I think he should actually be thanked for averting what could have been something detrimental that would have left our troops without payment, our American citizens without programs working. So I think that this is, not the last that we will see of Kevin McCarthy. I think there's an opportunity here for a comeback for him to remain as Speaker, and we will see how this plays out over the next 48 hours.
Congresswoman, that actually leads me to my next question. The irony here, McCarthy's big sin was working with Democrats to pass that spending bill, but Republicans needed Democrats in order to oust him. So what does this say about the future ability of these two parties to work together?
Well, I thought it was very sad today that none of the Democrats voted alongside us to keep Kevin McCarthy there, knowing that the person that was trying to oust him is a far-right extremist in which they have nothing in common. So I think it was a bad day for people who are seeking common ground, people who are looking for good governance. And look, I think that, it was every New York Democrat, by the way, every single one of them voted with Matt Gaetz. Mm-hmm. And so on one hand, they call him a right-wing extremist, but on the other hand, they voted with him to oust someone who was trying to work in a bipartisan manner when we needed to avoid certain tragedies from occurring. So I think it's a sad day, and what the American people should know is that this basically brings us to a halt at the moment. We only have 42 days left to fund the government. We are vigilantly working through our appropriations bills to get this government funding so we don't face a shutdown. And this really impedes us, and it really brings us to a halt at the moment, because without a speaker, it's very difficult for us to proceed doing the people's business.
You said that you see him possibly as a comeback kid here. How does that look? What does that look like for him to pull that off?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we're going to be meeting again at the conference. I think that, and what people need to understand is that there is just like 2% of the Republican conference who does not want Speaker McCarthy. So 98% of us stand with this speaker. We think he is doing a good job. And the 2% sided with the Democrats to remove him, completely undermining the entire conference. So I think we're going to go back to conference. We're going to have more discussions. Perhaps we can work across the aisle again to see if there's a way that we can get a couple of Democrats to support Speaker McCarthy in the interest of making sure that our government is functioning. And like I said, there's no good reason to remove him. Okay, he's committed to have single subject bills, making sure we have 3 days to read the bills. He caused a $2 trillion taxpayer savings with the prevention of the debt default and the debt deal that was made. And people need to recognize that we are only 1/3 of the government, Republicans, right? The White House and the Senate are still controlled by Democrats. So those who want everything and don't want to negotiate on anything are just not being realistic. We have to work across party lines. We have to work with the Senate. But I think Speaker McCarthy is the best person to negotiate on behalf of the Republicans to make sure we do get a secure border at the end of this appropriations process, that we do cut excessive wasteful spending at the end of this appropriations process. But those who want everything and think that we're going to get it, controlling only 1/3 of the federal government, are just not being realistic.
Do you have any idea, in speaking with your colleagues across both parties, what went wrong in trying to persuade them to support McCarthy?
Well, you know what? I'm part of the Problem Solvers Caucus, and I was very disappointed that the Democrats, Josh Gottheimer and others who have, in the past been willing to work with us, did not couldn't muster up any votes to prevent this from happening and allowing for a right-wing takeover of the institution. What I would say is that I think it happened all very fast, and the motion to vacate happened on Monday, and the vote was today, and I think there was a lack of time for them to process what was happening. And look, I think they have concerns, right? I mean, Democrats don't necessarily trust the Republicans don't necessarily trust the Democrats. That's why the Problem Solvers Caucus actually exists. But in this case, it failed. Unfortunately, the Problem Solvers Caucus, made up of Republicans and Democrats, of which I'm a member, was unable to get together, and I was disappointed that the Democrats would not back up, us who have worked with them to try to address the major issues facing our country, and instead chose to side with a right-wing extremist who, by the way, he wanted President Trump to be the Speaker of the House. So it's interesting that the Democrats, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the squad, sided with the person who nominated Donald Trump to be the Speaker of the House on January 3rd.
Okay, well, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis of Staten Island, thank you for the insight tonight. For now, there is chaos, there is no Speaker, and we will stay tuned to see what happens next.